Hi guys, Leica Earthkeeper here, and thank you for joining in to the Story of a Yogi. Today I have special guest Julie Cotton. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I would love to just dive right in
Let's do it.
and share, how did you become a yogi?
Well, I first learned about yoga. I was probably like 19 when I first started really studying it. I'm sure I'd heard of it or like seen it in movies and stuff, but it was like I wasn't really doing that. I was also raised Christian, so like you weren't supposed to do that. Like that was like bad and wrong, and you just didn't do that. So I was athletic as a kid, so I ran track and stuff like that. So I was always moving my body, and movement was always very important to me. But the idea of like, oh, that I can actually bring in and like unify, like bring my body into union, that this is body, mind, spirit stuff, that actually didn't come till much later. So I did Rodney Yee's AM and PM yoga in like the 90s on VHS. Like that was my first. I'm doing yoga. I'm all spiritual and stuff. Yeah, and that was kind of a rebellious ish phase for me. I had like turmoil going on in my home. Of course, I'm seeking like some kind of solace that like somewhere's got to feel like home. I tried the church for a while, and that worked for a while. It was nice to have community, and then it was like, okay, it feels kind of like I've come to the end of where that offered something, that I was seeking something more than that. And then got into body movement. So I also found Windsor Pilates about the same time. And so I had my Windsor Pilates tapes and I had my Rodney Yee tapes, and I was like getting it. Also Tai Bo, that was a thing, like Billy Blanks, right? So I was really getting into like this body identification where I was like, maybe I had been kind of not necessarily cut off from my body, but just going through puberty. And so I was like, what is this thing? It's like, I went from like, so fun fact, I was a youngin. I graduated 8th grade at 12. So I started high school at 13 and I graduated high school at 16. So all through grade school, like other girls were getting puberty, they were having periods, and like we had the talk where they pull you to the side room and they were like, so girls, here's what's happening. You need to make sure you handle this because there's going to be this flow of blood coming out of you soon. And here's what a tampon looks like, and here's what a pad looks like. And it was just like, hey, thanks. It was like 5th or 6th grade. But none of that was happening for me because I was a year younger than everybody else. So I was like, all right, well, one kid even signed my yearbook, like, do you even have tits? Like, I was like, oh, thanks. Like, nope, I don't. And then I went back after 8th grade. I came to high school, and all of a sudden I did. I had boobs and I had hips almost overnight, and I had braces and glasses. I was like, all the things in the same year. So I was like, who am I? All of that just was like, I was in the throes of that at age 13. And that was like when I was pushing against my mom for individuation and be like, you're over there and I'm not you. And I'm like, I was still uber Christian at this point. And I was like, my mom would swear at me like a sailor. She was bipolar. And she was just trying to get my attention. And so she was like, I'm like, do you praise your Lord with that mouth? And I would just be so sassy on my spiritual high horse here, and it was like judging my poor mom. Anyway, it was comical. In review, it's like, oh, look how cute we all were. But in all of that was this kind of disassociation from my body because it like freaked out on me overnight. And so coming back, like as I was going into college, so around 19-ish, I would say 18, 19, I'm really looking into the yoga and Pilates stuff. So it's really just about like coming into my core, who am I, like all of that kind of self-exploration. And simultaneously, so I went to college for acting, and a lot of like stuff in school, my parents were, they did the best they could. I love my family. I'm so blessed. And there was a lot of this going on in my home of origin. And so it's like, all right, well, I don't want this. And my brother was like really high maintenance. He was ADD. My mom was bipolar. My dad had anger issues. And so they were like ganging up on my brother just to try to discipline him. And I was like, well, I don't want that kind of attention, but I would like some attention, So I got into theater and I learned, oh, I get attention when I'm on stage. But it was like I got attention for being somebody other than me. And then I went so all through grade school, high school, loved it, accolades, top of my class, and then I got a free scholarship to school because of my education. I was like, and then I got to go to school for acting. I did theater education. So it was like all like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Because I was only getting rewarded for not being me. And so yoga came around about this time in undergrad. So I went to grad school for acting too, but it's like, okay, well, who am I? And I didn't, it's like you know as much as you know, and you go as far as you can with that knowledge. And then when you get there, you can see further. And you're like, oh, I was just beginning to know, So Rodney, for those of you who are yogis, know that that's really just the beginning of knowing. He's a great jumping off point.
Yeah.
And a practitioner. Anyway, were you gonna jump in on that?
Oh, no, well, when you were talking about the acting, that's just so magical to me. Like, I think that is amazing.
Yeah.
And so you do improv now, you teach it.
Yep. Yeah.
Tell us some about that.
Sure. So my undergrad is in theater education with a minor in vocal performance. And so I knew that I loved theater. I loved the attention that I got from it. Later I came to find out that my love language is words of affirmation and quality time. And so in acting, people give you all kinds of accolades and tell you how great you are. And I get to spend time with people, So it was kind of like I got all of my love bank filled up, so it was great. And then I think I got into improv during undergrad. I was going to like a weekend workshop for something. It was a group, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And in Phoenix, we had this group called the Oxymorons. And they were an improv troupe, and they were teaching like a long form of improv. So improv, for a lot of people, know improv because of Whose Line Is It Anyway, right? So that's kind of like these short vignettes, scenes that have kind of a game or a gimmick to them, where it's like, okay, you and I are going to have a scene here, and we'll have a conversation, but we have to try to go around the alphabet in our conversation. So the first word you speak is going to start with the letter A, and then I'll say a word with the letter B, and then C, D, and we'll go all the way around the alphabet back to A. Okay. And that would be the game of the scene. So that short form was kind of put on the map a lot because of Whose Line Is It Anyway. It was made pretty famous. Like they did newscasters and they did hoedown, where they're like, let's sing a song that we've never written before, So it was all this kind of on the fly, cool stuff. But there's a gimmick, so we could practice improv, and I teach improv now. Thank you to that Oxymorons group, who I think is no longer, but I was a student, and it like birthed this really joyous, fun, challenging. So here's the thing. I am someone I'm super smart, and that can be a blessing and a curse, right? Because I'm really good at pretty much everything I try to do.
You are. I can attest.
So it's a blessing and a curse, right? I'm a jack of all trades, and some would say master of none. I would say I'm a master of a few, but I have this like shiny object syndrome where it's like, oh, squirrel, oh, that's exciting. I want to go play with it. Ooh, I want to play that game. Ooh, I want to play that. So yoga can be very supportive in my system to kind of like, ooh, let's bring it in. Let's just focus on this moment. Let's just practice right here on this mat and this little square. Like we're here. We'll be here now, Julie. Don't be in all those other places. So anyway, so improv was birthed in that experience and learning, oh, I can make people laugh. Like not only can I entertain them, because I do a lot of musical theaters where we're singing and acting and dancing all together, but it wasn't necessarily funny. Although if it was written into the script, I would be funny because my character was written to be funny and I had some comedic timing and it was like, cool. But I didn't know that I could create that without a script. And I was like, oh, I see. Okay. And there was a formula. It was mathematical. It was formulaic. And that anybody could be taught this thing that freed me up, like to have so much more joy in the doingness of theater. It was like, I remember I used to perform shows at a local community theater in Peoria, Arizona. It was called Theater Works. And I was the kind of person that had practiced and kind of, to a degree, mastered my skill. Like with acting, I talk about this is your actor's instrument. It's like our yogi instrument too, right? Like we learn to play the instrument. How do I play this instrument? How can I make this instrument sad? And how can I make it happy? And how can I make it have energy? And how can I make it be really tired? Like I'm learning how to do that with my body, which as we practice the asanas too in yoga, we're learning to surrender. How can I maintain that balance between like active muscles, but then surrendering into the pose, right? So my core is on and working and I'm lit up from within from who am I, but I'm surrendering into the lengthening or the strengthening of the pose, right? So same thing with improv. Like people say, oh my God, Julie, you do so much. And I'm like, no, I really only do one thing. I'm just being loving on the planet, right? Like I'm just a garden for love. Like that's all I'm doing is practicing being love and seeing love everywhere that I go. And I use improv as a way to do that. And I use yoga as a way to do that. And I use whatever else I'm up to, right? Community building is a big thing for me. A big passion of mine is like, how do I be a contribution to my community and bring people together who to me make common sense to be together, but maybe have decided because they're in warrior and their arms are spread apart that they're opposing. No, you're still connected through this heart thing that we have. So we're all one here. How do we remember that we're all in support of the oneness that we all are?
That's so beautiful. You do massage. You're a master at that.
Aw, thanks.
Gosh.
Sweet. I still need to get into your Reiki room. Yeah.
But I've been on her table. She's amazing.
Yeah.
And everybody loves her. Yeah.
I think I was put here, or I chose to come here, however you want to look at that, as a muse, because I don't really belong anywhere, but I make a home everywhere.
Everywhere you go.
Yeah. Everywhere is like, wherever you go, there you are. So how can if my goal everywhere I'm going is to be love and see love, then everyone welcomes me wherever I'm going, because I don't have an agenda other than that. How can I be love and see love, right? Like, what would love bring to this situation? What would I do if this was love? Like, oh, there you are, or there you are, God, or there you are, love, right? Like, oh, so I see you, love, and let me bring my love to meet your love. And there we are, love, right? There's love in between us. And so who doesn't love to be around love? And who doesn't love to feel love? It's like, so if I want to see it, I have to be it. Mm-hmm. That's that union. If it's missing out here, it's because it's missing in here. And so my quest, and I feel like I'm also only ever teaching what I most need to learn, right? So this idea from being a kid and being, well, let me be as somebody else. Who do you want me to be so that you'll love me? Mm-hmm. Like, will you pour some love in my cup? Because my parents didn't, right? They didn't have time. They were, take care of my brother and fighting with each other. So it's like, well, let me do whatever I need to do to earn the love. But then when yoga and all these other spiritual practices, I was a student of A Course in Miracles as well. It's just like, oh, wait, I don't have to go anywhere for love, right? Because that's who I am, right? And who we all are, right? And so I don't believe that there's any victims in the world either. And this is not a very popular belief. So I can out myself here. So I feel we're 100% responsible for everything that we create and that happens in the scene of our lives, right? So when I step out onto the stage in improv, the audience has no idea what I'm going to say. I might ask them for a suggestion. And so they're hoping that in some way I use their suggestion, and whatever that looks like. So they don't know how I'm going to use it. They don't know if I'm going to be super direct and just say the word they just said back to them. They're like, gee, that's my thing. Or if I'm going to be real subtle about it. Like if somebody were to like, give me a word of suggestion. Let's see.
Fabulous.
Fabulous. Okay. So thank you. I heard fabulous. And then I would maybe pull at my cloth here. Just enjoy it. So I might be discreet where I'm like, I heard fabulous, and that made me think of fabric. So I went to my fabric, my cloth, of my shirt. And so I'm exploring the fabulousness of my fabric. So it might be something where I'm being fabulous. I'm really big and boisterous, or maybe it's something more subtle, right? But so the thing that my audience or my person gives me as the idea, I'm going to say yes to that. And the and is the expression of divinity. Right? The and is where what's your creative genius do with that impulse, that gift, that initiation that you gave me. It's gonna somehow live and resonate and circulate in me, and my expression of it will be unique unto myself. That's my and, right? And so we're doing that in yoga too, right? You can tell me we're gonna let's move through down dog and up into up dog, right? And so what that looks like in your instrument. It's going to be entirely different than what it looks like in my instrument. When I teach yoga, I'm like, this is yoga practice, not yoga perfect.
Yes, I love that.
You can't break yoga, right? Like it's just you're practicing bringing yourself into union and what that looks like for you. I can offer structural adjustments with your spine because we optimally want to get our spine as aligned as possible to create the column for the energy to flow through us, right? And if we're here, it's a little harder, but still the divine can work around the corners and the kinks, and it'll migrate through. And the intention is as much the mind of it is as much as the physicality of it is, and we work towards. Can I get a millimeter more? And it's done one step at a time. It's not one and done.
And you can sing.
I do. I love to sing. Yeah.
She has a beautiful voice.
Thank you. Oh, I never even addressed the massage therapy thing. So going back to that, I got into massage as an actor. So I also do kickbox as well. So when I went to graduate, I did go to graduate school for acting as well, undergrad. So I've been acting for a very long time. That's like my passion. And in graduate school, as we were getting ready to graduate, we had a year to go. And our artistic director at the time pulled us into his office, Israel Hicks, who's no longer with us in this plane, but still a great influence in my life. He's like, all right, ladies, a size 2 is in fashion, and gentlemen, it's washboard abs. So do whatever you got to do to get there. The camera adds 10 pounds because we're all actors, right? And we're in Jersey because we went to Rutgers, and that was one of the top 10 schools in the nation when I went there. We were number 3 in graduate school programs, and so a lot of people went into New York City and became, like whether they're doing Broadway or they're doing like CSI or any of the like NBC, ABC shows that were going on at that point. Everybody's agencies and things were in New York City, and so this is a product, and Rutgers is producing a product, and they get their bragging rights, and they do their recruiting based on how well their graduating classes do. So they want us to represent the school in the right way, right? Like in their branding or whatever. So I didn't like going to the gym, and I had done, Rodney Yee, and I'd done some Pilates and all of that stuff, but I was like, what am I going to do to lose 10 pounds? Because at this point I was probably like a size 7. So I need to get to a size 2. I had a year to do it. And so I was walking, I was like at a fair in a local town, and there was this street fair. So there's booths, and one of the booths was a martial arts, dojo. And there's this very attractive man who is holding boards for you to break. And I was like, I don't want to break a board. And I was watching him. So I've been watching to see how he's coaching other people to break the board. And I was like, I could do that. And so I'm like, I want to try. Like I break the board. And I'm like, yay. So I talked to the senseis or whatever there, and I give them my card, we exchange cards. I'm doing a summer program. I was teaching theater to kids. We were doing like a K-8 program, summer camp, to raise money for us all to go to showcase in LA, because we have to showcase in the LA area, and we can do New York is right there, but we had to pay money to fly and get hotel rooms and all that. So my graduating class of like 16 people, we had to get us all this over there to showcase our acting monologues and scenes that we would do to like be like, look what a great actor I am. You want to bring me into your agency, or you want to hire me for your NBC show. So we were raising money. Well, we did an exchange. So they had a summer camp too, and I had a summer camp. And I was like, well, would you come in and teach self-defense to my kids, and I'll come in and teach acting and improv stuff to your kids. It will be like a resource for each other, right? Community builder, right? And this is what I do. I think like, ooh, I have things that could like, your kids could probably benefit if they heard a different voice for a little bit of your day, right? I'd probably wake them up a little bit, have some fun. My kids could definitely benefit from hearing a different voice and like understanding another use of their bodies, the actor's instrument, so being able to defend themselves. So long story short, we exchange. I get over there. He gets over here. I end up training at his dojo, looking for Mr. Hottie, right? Turns out the Hottie's their painter, not even a student. Wah, wah, but divine appointments. So I wasn't meant to chase Mr. Hottie. I was meant to get in the door and become a student of martial arts. Which I don't even remember why I started telling that story, but martial arts was a big part of the getting into shape. That's how I got down to my size 2, was I trained just to get into shape. Then, 6 years goes by and you have a black belt, and another couple of years and you have a second-degree black belt. So, there you go. It's just one incremental step followed by another, followed by another, followed by another. Right? And we learned ballet in my master's program. So then I get up to my chiropractor. When I got into massage, all of our graduating class of actors moved into New York City and became bartenders or servers. Well, I had done that to put myself through undergrad. So I was like, well, what do I want to do? So I stayed at the school, and I actually worked as like a box office manager. I was a sexton for a chapel where people got married and had celebrations of life and stuff. And like if they needed a random singer, going back to singing, I'm classically trained. I was a vocal performance minor in undergrad. And so people would, if they didn't have their singer show up and they needed a song, like Ave Maria was really popular. And of course I happen to know it, and I've trained in Latin and all this stuff. So it's like, I'll sing Ave Maria for you, or I'll sing The Wind Beneath My Wings for your celebration of life. So it was always a bonus to have me like sextoning this chapel. It was great. Anyway, just so many fun. I've had so many fun things in my life. And then I'm a martial artist. I do ballet. I've been certified in Pilates at this point. And then my chiropractor, so I went to work for a chiropractor massaging people because I went to night school right after I graduated. So I'm sextoning and I'm doing all these like box office jobs by the day. And then, I went to teach. I was a teaching artist at a local theater in at George Street Playhouse in New Jersey. So I'm teaching acting by day, doing the sex singing job, and then at night I went to night school for massage because I was working in a chiropractor's office and I loved getting massages. I was a tour actor, by the way. This goes back to a different story. I digress. Squirrel. Remember when I told you about that? So when I was 9 years old, I was sitting in our gymnasium, and they brought in this theater troupe to perform a play for us. It was a musical play. It was called Clarissa's Closet. The company was called Child's Play, and I sat there like mesmerized in the front row, being like, "This is amazing!" It was like this little girl Clarissa in her closet. She didn't want to clean her closet, and all this stuff. And there were all these songs, and there were costume changes. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm 9. And then I was like, I'm gonna do that when I grow up. So fast forward, I graduate from undergrad. And I go to work for Charles Schwab because I was also a little bit of a nerd with numbers. And I'm like, I'm going to get my, Series 7 and I'm going to help people invest money. And then I get a call. I've been auditioning. I've been doing theater, like theater works and all this, community theater on the side, right? I've been doing that for a while. And then I get a call from this company. That's the only paid gig in town. Only professional theater company in Arizona was a right to work state. So a lot of people didn't join the union, the Actors Union or the Screen Actors Guild or any of that because you could work, you get more consistent work without joining a union that says you have to work and get paid this much and work this many hours and blah, blah, blah. Most of us were like just hustling. So the only paid gig in town that wasn't union was Child's Play. And that's the same company that I saw when I was 9. And I had auditioned for them. They were doing The Owl and the Pussycat, the poem. And I got called back, but I didn't make it. And my callback consisted of they had this summer, they had think like a tree house, but not high up on the ground. So there are all these levels, almost like a playground. And it was for another show they were doing for their kids for that summer. And they were like, well, just be cat-like. Use the set and be cat-like. Well, so again, trained in martial arts. I was like all over the place. I was super Gumby. I was like hanging off the side of it and crawling underneath it. And so I got called back, but I didn't get the part. Well, then I get a call. I'm at Charles Schwab after school. And they are like, so we had our actress got offered this other role with this other touring company. And could you learn this role in like a week or 2? By the way, it's all in German.
Oh my God.
So because I was a vocal performance minor, classically trained in the International Phonetic Alphabet in German, right? So we know how to sing in German, French, Italian, right? They teach us so that we can sing. Now, I don't know what I'm saying, but I can speak it and sound like I do because I know how to transcribe it. Anyway, just random fun facts in Julie's life. So there I was. I had like 5 rehearsals. I got to watch a video to learn my blocking, and I was on the road doing tour with the theater that I said at 9 years old, I want to do that when I grow up.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I know. I've lived a blessed life. I really have.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's awesome. So fast forward, I'm back at the chiropractor's office because I'm getting adjusted, and I love the way massage feels. It feels so good. I'm going to night school because I'm like, well, I don't want to be a bartender anymore. I did that to put myself through undergrad. I paid for undergrad through a scholarship. I had to keep straight A's because I had an academic scholarship, and then I had to pay like my last semester I had to pay for. So I financed $6,000 to go to this private Christian school in Arizona. It was super fun. But I did not want to go and work at Denny's or work at a bar to go to New York and like do all that stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do my thing. I was working for this theater by day, and then I went to night school for massage. And I graduated massage school. And when I'm graduating, the girl who is our massage therapist at the chiropractor was going on maternity leave. So I just dipped right into her job. And I was like, ever since then, I've just been massage. So that's 15, almost 16 years now that I've been doing massage.
Have you ever experienced burnout?
Burnout for me happens in my right shoulder.
Okay.
And I had one time I think I had done like 11 massages that day, and I taught a kickboxing class, and I did a boot camp in the morning. I was running like 50 flights of stairs. I was crazy in my training. And my biceps tendon came out of my bicipital groove. And like sometimes we get those like subclinical, like, ouch, hey, that hurts. Hey, that hurts. Well, I had ignored all those. And so I overdid it, and I could feel it was in my last client. It was 11 o'clock at night, and my right arm just gave out. So I had to finish the massage. I mean, I could do this. It was like a little
T-Rex.
a little T-Rex massage. This one was fine. So I did most of my pressure with this hand, and then this one, every time I could like,
oh God.
so, great. So I couldn't use my arms at all. Well, this arm. And so I had to like go on leave. I couldn't do push-ups. I mean, I could teach, but I couldn't, but I didn't have students back then. So I worked with a recovery center. I was teaching improv to them for drugs and alcohol. And then I had some mental health, like folks that would like cut and things like that. So those were some of my students that I was teaching improv to, and also martial arts. So it's like self-defense for the women and stuff like that. So I got to kind of chill out. I didn't get to massage. I worked much less. I barely made enough money at that point. I was living paycheck to paycheck. And so I had to borrow like $3,000 from my mom to like make it through the month. And then I sat in meditation a lot. And I was like, all right, what, you have my attention. What would you like?
You have my attention.
And then during that, I got this download of many of the improv classes that I still teach to this day.
Wow. So
yeah.
it was a time of inspiration for you.
It was. Yeah, it could have been like the world could have perceived it. And at the time, I'm sure my ego was like, oh, this sucks here. But luckily, I had some practice of meditation. I was a vortex healer by that point. I want to think that was 2014. And when I was in massage school, I went right back to massage school, like when I graduated with the basics, and I learned neuromuscular therapy, which is one that I use to this day constantly. And there was a guy in my class, and he was like wiggling his fingers at me across the room, and he was like, "You're dehydrated and you're low on vitamin D." And I was like, "How do you know that? You're like a wizard." And he's like, "Yeah, I am." And he's like, "I do this thing called vortex healing," and so he did energy healing, and I was like, "I would like to receive that." So he gave me energy healing, and I would help him. He was a bit of a what do you call it, hoarder. So I had to like organize his house room, or I would massage him and stuff. But he then he's like, Julie, you can just go into New York and take a class in this and just get, you don't need me to do this for you. You can do it for yourself. And so it's like, oh, okay. So I did. And that was in 2009. I started getting transmissions for vortex healing, which is a energy healing modality like Reiki, and it's an awakening lineage that poses as a healing modality, because as we wake up out of the story of who we think we are, all of a sudden, infinite number of stories become available to us. So It was like, here we are, these multifaceted beings, these energetic beings. We have, physical bodies and mental bodies and emotional bodies and etheric bodies and karmic bodies and all these things. So it's like, and it would happen on my table where I'd be like, man, I don't get it. Like they said in class, if I do this technique this many times, you should experience a 50% increase in your range of motion, 50% decrease in pain. But you're still having the same issues week after week after week. And I was like, I don't think this is a physical issue. And that's when I began to ask the questions. It was like 2009. And that's when I started doing vortex healing. And it was like, oh, so then I started. Now it used to be when I was very basic vortex healing. If I'm working on like releasing a karma knot, let's say like the karma knots are knots that we build around our karmic spine that hold the densification of a certain identification in place. It's like if someone has a belief that I am angry, that's just how I am. I'm just an angry person. The energy, the divine energy, is not my energy. I'm just like pointing it. I'm like, over there. I'm like the radio dial, that station, go over there. Comes in and dialogues with the issue or the conditioning in our system. And it's like, oh, is that true? That really you are an angry person? Is that true? Right? And then it begins to unravel the identification. So instead of it being I am angry, it becomes there's anger in my system. And now, if it doesn't belong to anyone, right? It's not mine. Right? Who am I?
Not who am I? It's not who I am.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Like, oh, I'm not that. I can still exist in me. It doesn't cost me anything to, and eventually we can clear it up and out and we can remove the anger. But being okay with whatever occurs within this experience of consciousness that's localized as a Julie, then it's like there's a disidentification with it, which goes perfectly with my acting background, because I'm like, I can play any character you want me to because I'm none of them, right? But at the time, I wanted to be all of them because they would love me if I would be anybody but Julie. But then it's like, oh wait, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that. Oh, cool, this is fun. So I got the energetics finally synced up with the concepts I've been practicing and acting for years. And it was like, oh, I began unhooking my own system. And then, so it used to take me 45 minutes to channel on one karma knot to move it. And you could have hundreds in your system, right? So I did this practice for a number of years. I think I stopped right around COVID. I think my last training was in the beginning of COVID. And I just didn't feel, I'm so Reiki, I think you do 3 layers and then you're a master, right? Reiki master. I can't decide to be a teacher of vortex healing. There's only 6 on the planet at any given time.
Really?
And divine chooses them. Yep. And so that was such a relief to me, because normally I kickboxing until I could teach it. I did yoga until I could teach it. I did Pilates till I could teach it, right? But this, I couldn't teach. It was just like, so I could relax into this modality of just receiving. And so I didn't channel on other people until I got up through the levels. So I've gone through like 38 levels of vortex healing. And if I were to channel on someone now, what used to take me 45 minutes takes me now 4 or 5 seconds. So by the time I'm done thinking the thought, the energy's already gone. So I didn't start healing other people with this until I could do it quickly, because I was like, oh, it's not gonna be worth their time. You know, I felt so bad because it was like, it takes so long to just move one little thing. That's more about my impatient issue, right? That I was looking and dealing with versus like, oh, people, they experience whatever they experience. And it looks like, so let's say someone comes to me with impatience and they're like, oh, I really want to get rid of this impatience issue. And I was like, oh, you probably don't want to come see me then, because what's going to happen, I might unhook your identification with it, but then you're going to get all kinds of opportunities to test your patience.
Yeah.
Because it's not, the healing isn't that the thing ever goes away. It's that your relationship with it is forever altered. So it's like the light world is going to whirl all around us. Life is going to keep lifing. And it's like, who am I in it?
Yeah.
Who can I be while I'm walking about the planet, knowing that I'm the divine actor, not the character that I put on? I can be the character of Julie and get really angsty, and things can get really hard if I identify as this form.
Mm-hmm.
And so I discipline the form. That's why I practice yoga. That's why I practice martial arts. But I'm mindful in it to experience what the form is experiencing, so I can communicate. Like, the body is a communication device with the divine. And like, if I know how to interpret what it's saying, I have infinitely more fun playing the part. Mm-hmm. Yay!
You can drum too.
I mean, yes. So
Is there anything you can't do?
there's a lot of things I can't do.
Because that might be the easier
I-
to list.
I am not. I bought a pole because I had a
Oh,
studio
yeah.
of my own, and I had like a couple of poles in there. And I mean, I can pole. It's just a matter of putting time. Like, it's what do I spend time doing? You know, and I have a belief that things are fun and easy to pick up. Where I struggle, okay, this is one. I'm not great at sales yet. I have yet to break through my own identification with I suck at sales conversation, right? So I'm okay at sales. Like, I have plenty of clients on my massage table, and I'm aware that, like, given my background and like all that I've experienced and the learnings that I have and a lot that I bring to the table, that I'm not charging what I could charge if I had a different audience, if I had a different like, I haven't found my stride in like serving, like, because to me it's like dollars earned equals amount of service given. So I get that there's a way to amplify my service so that more benefit, you know, or who I'm serving, and maybe that person is like the CEO of a large company and they influence thousands of people. You know what I mean? Like, so doesn't mean I have to directly go impact thousands of people or millions of people, but can I impact the impact leaders, the thought leaders, right? So that the dollars that flow back to me is the exchange of energy that I'm contributing to the overall economy of the game of 3D, right? Like, so anyway, I'm beginning to ask a different question, where it's like, I feel like I've kind of been hiding out and doing my own work and kind of clearing the channels, you know, and the more clearing I can do here. One of the things one of my professors said in massage, Stan Jerome, says the best thing we can bring to a table as a therapist is a well-integrated therapist. So if I want to have a greater impact on the people I'm encountering, I get to do deeper work on myself. It's like, let me be willing to go in and turn myself inside out to find the no-thingness that I am, so that love can be the only experience that passes through me and to me, right? So it's a process.
Yeah.
And yoga is a big part of that process. And drumming is great. So toning and vibration and all of that stuff. So my mother, I was 7 when I started piano lessons, and my mom loved the piano so much too. She started going for lessons, and then she went back to school in her 30s and got her degree in music education. So she played all the instruments. And so we had a piano studio in my house growing up, and she turned her thing that she loved into an income stream for her. It's probably, I'm very entrepreneurial like my mom in that way. And I would teach all the kids that were like ages 5 through, I was 11 when I started teaching piano. as long as I could sight read their music, I would teach them. And then they would pass on and graduate to my mom. And so I could play like Mozart and Clementi and like Beethoven and all that stuff. And my mom and I used to do four hands piano competitions. They would come to so we'd be playing a duet at two different pianos in a like auditorium of like 50 other piano players that were also doing that. We were all playing the same song together. It was really cool. It was a cool experience. So yes, drumming was a part of, I mean, music has been a part of my life for a long time. Yeah.
I love music.
Me too.
It's medicine.
It is. I love singing. When we got to sing the other day at your drum circle, it was so awesome. Like the different harmonies, that's my favorite. I love to harmonize.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, you're a Gemini.
I am
Yeah.
a Gemini.
Yeah.
I'm a twin, and I'm literally a twin. So I had a twin, but she was stillborn.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, but so I feel like I have had contact with like what happens beyond death because of that connection.
Mhm.
And so I've been a death doula on a couple of occasions. Something that we can do with Vortex Healing is support in releasing karma for people as they're coming in. So babies on their way in and folks that are transitioning on their way out, because the physical density of consciousness is lessened. And so if we can clean up any karma coming in or coming out while that's kind of like in that womb and nebulous
Right.
space between dimensions, then people might not have to come back and work on any of that stuff. So it's kind of fun. So I've been around a few people that have transitioned. Like when my mom and I were both visiting my dad's mother, who is dying, and we had one shift, and then my dad and my brother were on their way, so we were ships passing in the night or cars passing in the road. And as we were driving home, before my dad and my brother got there, I was like, "Oh, Grandma just died. See, Grandma's gone." And then when my dad and my brother got there, she was. And so just fun things like that. Like I was channeling on a friend's mother who I think had the BRCA gene, and she had breast cancer and was kind of struggling. And she was an improv friend of mine, and I'm driving to her house in Fort Lauderdale, channeling on her mom. And all of a sudden it got really easy to channel. And I looked at the time. I was like, okay. And then I got to the house, I don't know, 12 minutes later or so. And there was a candle lit, and her mom was in kind of a hospice bed, and my friend was like kind of like clasping her hand, crying and like petting her mom's face. And she looked up at me, and I was like, she's gone. It's 5:56 or whatever, And she just, and then but she was holding on and waiting. She was like, the candle was lit. She's like, but the candle's still lit. I'm like, you're keeping her here. Like she's not here anymore. Like you have your process, So she just kind of climbed up into her lap and just very sweet. So yeah, death doesn't. I don't know. It's weird. Like my own mom passed away, and I cried, and I was like, this is so weird. And I'm crying because I have beliefs about death. It's not the end. It's just a letting go of the garb. Just like me hanging up my costume at the end of the show, right? Like the consciousness of the actor doesn't go anywhere, but that's and scene. It's the end of that play. It's closing night, and yet here I am, ready to play the next part, So death doesn't occur for me in the same way for most people. But my Gemini, my little twin. That's why. So yeah, I'm also a horse in Chinese medicine or Chinese astrology. So I'm like a horse or a Gemini. I'm like a double fold. It's good times.
I love it.
Yeah.
Gosh.
What are you?
So much talent. I'm a Pisces.
Oh, I love Pisces. I have a lot of Pisces energy in my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're having a birthday coming up then.
I did.
You
It
did?
was last week, I think.
Happy belated. Oh, I love that. Yay.
Oh.
Should I ask how young you are? Do you want to tell your listeners?
No, let's not. Okay, I want to ask you, well, before we go into the last question, there's a couple other things we haven't touched on. Rotary is a big part of your life.
Sure.
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I am part of, so I don't know who's watching, where you are in the world, but we're in Elkhart, Indiana here. And when I first came to this area, I feel like I'm on divine appointments a lot. And so I just get called the most random place. I'm from Arizona. I went to graduate school in New Jersey. I went down to Florida and lived and worked there for a while. And now I'm up here in the kind of Michigan, Indiana area. And I've been here since 2017. We're in 2023 at the making of this podcast. So I've been here for 6 years. So I'm on these like short bursts of assignments. They can last 6 to 8 years. So when I joined this area, my ex was the boyfriend at the time. He was like, I'm going to run for mayor. And I was like, but nobody knows who you are. Not of Elkhart, but of the town that we were in Michigan. And I was like, but nobody really knows you. Like, you're not part of your chamber. You're not part of Rotary. You're not part of like a service club or, I mean, Lions or Kiwanis or any of those would have been fine too. You're not, you don't network anywhere. You're not part of like a BNI, like a networking organization. So like, how do you know that like politics is like a popularity contest? So like, what are you thinking? So I joined all of these on his behalf because I was the CFO of this company. Remember, I said I went to Charles Schwab when I was starting to get my Series 7. So I know a couple things, but not crazy amounts. But I was his CFO for a bit, and I went and represented his company in all of these organizations. And then we broke up. And so I had all these friends. So I cried and nursed my wounds, went back to Florida for a hot second. But I would keep coming up here in the summer times. And so I kind of kept up with those relationships. And eventually his dad passed away, again, death doula. So I come up and I live with his dad in the last week of his life. And then I stayed with his widow for a month until everything was kind of, so they were my family too, just because we break up with the boy doesn't mean we break up with the family, you know, like that's kind of how I roll. And I still love him like a brother to this day. So I'm in the area and I'm like, okay, Spirit, what am I doing here? God, what am I doing here? Whatever it is, right? Like, it's like, what am I doing here? And I felt this kind of pull to rejoin these groups. And then I was going to be here for a while. And I ended up opening my studio within a couple months of that. And I opened and closed it within a year and a half. It was, I think, highly successful. I mean, I served over 350 people in 18 months. It was nuts. But Rotary is like this concept. So I was in Rotary when I was in high school. I was in student government. I was in like National Honor Society. I was in PEP Club. I was in all these like, I was in honor band and all these things. So it's like they pick delegates to go to Rotary and represent the school. So I was chosen as a delegate and I was able to get a ride there during the middle of the day. And it's like, you basically go and have lunch with a bunch of old white guys. No offense to Rotary, but it was founded by older white men that have the capacity. So these are like business leaders that have the time freedom, have the financial freedom, and have the wisdom and the knowledge and the talents to come together and serve their community. So these are people that are thinking more globally, more economically. They're wanting to support the area by bringing the resources, financial and wisdom resources together to then spread amongst local nonprofits and things like that, right? So Rotary, the motto of Rotary is service above self. And so I was exposed to that at a young age. And now, of course, women, I think women were allowed to be a part of Rotary starting in like the 80s. So it wasn't they've been around maybe as long as the 50s. I might be misquoting that, but it was founded like in the early 1900s. So Rotary as an organization is over 100 years old. They were originally founded in Chicago, and it was called Rotary, and they had this Rotary wheel because they used to change locations as to where they met for their meetings every week around these prominent business owners, businesses or wherever they would kind of just like pick up and do lunch here or breakfast here or whatever. And then it kind of became a group, and then they grew all over. Now there's 55,000 clubs all over the world.
Wow.
Yeah, the Rotary Foundation has like, I don't know, billions of dollars in it. And there's a lot of initiatives that Rotary is responsible for, including clean water, women and children issues, education. They're environmentally focused. They're economic development focused. So they've eradicated polio on the planet, things like that. So there's some things that they're up to that I can align to, so I'm like, if I want to get involved and get to know my area, then I want to join a service club. So I called Rotary because I'd been a part of Rotary. I went to their website and I said, hey, I'm new to the area. This is where I live. Where are some clubs and what times do you meet? I want to come by and look and see and meet your people. And Elkhart Rotary was the first to respond. Amy Houston was president at that time. She took me to lunch. I went to a meeting and I joined.
A woman president?
A woman president at the time, yeah. And now I'll be president in July. I'm so excited. And I've already started like implementing things that I would like to have in place for my year as president. So we're starting a program called Rotary Strong, which I had an initiative with my business called the 100 Strong. And it was 100 days, 100 ways of practicing self-love, self-care, right? Because put your own oxygen mask on first, and then you can actually help people. So
right.
You got to start here. Love starts here. Once Julie found love here, then she can go be love and see love, right? But it has to start from within. So I did the same thing I did with my company. Now I was like, what if we take this principle into Rotary? Let's just do like a Rotary health check and do Rotary Strong. So it's a 10 by 10 grid. So there's 10 different categories. And then we're encouraging people to do 10 activities in each of those categories. So those categories for me are, for Rotary, are outreach. You know, if you invited somebody to lunch, want to come to Rotary lunch with me sometime, let me know. You know, you're a local business entrepreneur and I'm a woman, you know, you can come and be my guest on lunch sometime. Or when we do after hour stuff. So the inviting somebody to come to lunch and be introduced to what Rotary is. Because even if they're not going to join the Rotary Club, they may be a volunteer at one of our service projects, or they may donate to help fundraise for
Raises
girls.
awareness.
Exactly. So there's outreach, and then we have friends getting to know our own Rotary Club. Our own Rotary Club has like 140 people in it. I don't know everybody's like story, like to get to know that. So make a friend, sit at a different table every week kind of thing. And then volunteer is one, like, can you get a volunteer to come with you on one event that you do? And then one is for you to serve, like go, have you done at least 10 service projects in a year? Like this is for a whole year, it's not 100 days. And then donations, have you donated, you know, to 10 different causes that Rotary supports or that our club is supporting? And then it just goes on like that. So there's just different opportunities. How can we check in? Are you maximizing and leveraging the breadth and depth of our club and what we could do? So this particular club, Elkhart Rotary, is responsible for founding the Wellfield Botanical Gardens. So if anybody ever comes to visit Elkhart, Indiana, there is a botanical gardens here that is here because our Rotary Club founded it. That was way before I got here, but they just celebrated, I think, 10 or 12 years or something, and they're completely solvent on their own. We're no longer fiduciarily responsible for them. They've left the nest, and they're a very solvent nonprofit that serves all ages, all genders, all religions, all everything. So in our area, it's been a really good thing.
That is amazing. I feel like you're going to come in there and just whip everything into shape for the year.
We got a lot of stuff going on this year. It's an active year. So my vision is to bring younger people in because our folks are aging out and moving and retiring to warmer climates. And I can't say that I blame them. They've all served this area tremendously well. And, you know, people remain honorary Rotarians if they want to. If they're back in the area in the nicer weather and they want to come in for lunch, they're always welcome. But we're looking to encourage people. So we're doing things like kayaking trips. We're doing a ropes course for our team, like for the club and family members and whatever, friends and stuff. We're going to go see the South Bend Cubs play a game. We're going to go run with the Girls on the Run. They have a 5K in May. So we're doing a couch to 5K challenge right now with our membership to be like, all right, now that it's spring, let's get moving. Let's get ready for this. And we're going to run alongside the girls or walk. There's some of the girls that walk too. So we're like, how can we get more active? We're going to do a Memorial Day float in the parade. It's just like, how do we be an impact? We did a United Way has a great cardboard boat race that they do every year. And we built a boat last year, Rotary did, and myself and the superintendent of parks paddled in the boat. We took first place in our heat and 6th overall out of 50 boats. Like we were pretty impressed with ourselves. So we're gonna go again this year, but just fun stuff like that, you know?
Yeah. Do you sleep?
I do really well.
That's
I leave it all on the field every day. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, if your head hits the pillow.
I'm
it's
like, that was
probably
fun. That was fun, Julian. Let's do it again tomorrow, you know?
Wow, you are an amazing
Thanks.
person. Wow. You blow my mind every time. I'm just like, what?
Oh, and another thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun. Yeah.
So for the last question,
Yeah.
well, I have to ask though, just my curiosity. I'm Gemini rising, so I'm curious too.
Okay.
Did the ex-boyfriend make it to mayor?
Oh, I don't know that he's on that trajectory anymore. I mean, he's definitely made some huge improvements in his business. He has a new girlfriend and she has 4 kids, so he's getting to play dad, and he's like the mayor of his house for sure.
Okay.
His company has grown tremendously, so I don't know that he is
So
on
he never
he is on the
became-
council though for the village that he lives in Michigan. He is on the council, so I think he's moving his way towards that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was something else that I wanted to ask, but I do want to move to the final question, and it's, what would your advice be for humanity right now?
Oh, if you want to see it, you got to be it. If you look outside and you see something that you think is wrong, what can you do? Where can you look inward to right that within yourself first, and then see what changes in the world around you? So, like, if there's a problem, rather than taking any energy to express it, what can you do to become the solution or a solution for the problem, because I believe there are millions of solutions for all of the ills that we can perceive in the world around us.
Mhm. So less and more doing. Less talk, more doing.
Yeah, and I would say even not just doing, because we can get busy, and I've been guilty of that plenty of times. But like plug in. It's like I love Abraham Hicks talks about the toaster analogy, where it's like, you know, if I'm a toaster and I can put the toast in and put the thing down, and I'd be like, this isn't working. I'm doing the thing. I'm being busy. But if you don't plug it in, I'd much rather do aligned action, which is where yoga is like get plugged in first and then move from a space of inspiration.
I love it. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And if you guys want to be in contact with Julie or learn about any more of the fascinating things that she does,